You are not here by accident. We are standing at the edge of possibilities between what is, what could, and what will be. Where time, space, and humanity cross paths. Where the future has stopped being theory as old assumptions fade away and new realities are becoming real. Are you ready to step beyond the familiar? Look no further and enter the third horizon.
Before we begin, I ask you to pause with me for a moment. Not to escape the present, but to examine it. Tonight's conversation is not an argument against the here and now. It is an exploration of what the here and now means when memory and responsibility are removed from it. A phrase echoes through modern culture. The past is over, the future is not here. So live only in the moment. On the surface, it offers a sense of peace, and at times, it truly can be comforting. But tonight, let us look deeper. The here and now is undeniably real. Yet, where the illusion may reside is the belief that the here and now, isolated, is sufficient. That belief presents us with a deeper question of what happens when a civilization embraces the now as all it needs, not merely as therapy, but as philosophy, as worldview. There is a crucial distinction between living in the present moment and believing the here and now is all that matters. For civilization, aspiring to grow, that difference is everything. Let us begin fairly. The call to live in the present moment did not emerge from foolishness. It emerged from suffering. Thinkers like Marcus Aurelius disciplined themselves to focus on what was within their control, not because history did not matter, but because uncontrolled reaction weakens judgment. Teachers like Eckhart Tolle speak about presence as a way to quiet the mind's endless looping. In Eastern philosophy, Laozi, an early Chinese philosopher, encouraged harmony with the natural order rather than forced determination. And in Buddhist teaching, rooted in the life of Buddha, the enlightened one, mindfulness, is central to understanding cause and consequence across time. These are not shallow teachings. They are disciplines of perceived clarity. But something happens when wisdom is reduced to slogans or removed from the equation. Distinction disappears. Structure collapses. And discipline becomes drift. If we are going to speak of wisdom keepers, we must widen the lens beyond philosophy. For example, wisdom keepers can include religious leaders, elders in communities, and storytellers who pass on traditions and lessons through generations. For thousands of years, faith traditions preserve time cautiously. For instance, Jewish people observe the Sabbath every week to mark sacred time, and Muslims commemorate Ramadan annually, connecting the present to the past through ritual and reflection. In the Bible, the word remember as in remembrance, appears repeatedly. Genealogies stretch across generations. Family trees are recorded to preserve heritage and ensure continuity. Covenants bind present people to future responsibility. For example, Passover is celebrated to remember the great exodus of Jewish people from Egypt, linking past events to current identity and obligations. Covenants, such as those made by Abraham, a famous leader in the Bible, are commitments that guide behavior and responsibility for future generations. The book of Ecclesiastes within the Bible speaks of seasons, a time for every purpose under heaven, which is time horizon structured and not removed from time horizons. For example, there are times designated for mourning, celebrating, planting, and harvesting, all illustrating that life is organized around meaningful moments rather than being random or disconnected from history or future events. In the Quran, every deed is meticulously recorded, and the consequences of a person's decisions reverberate far beyond the present moment. Accountability is not limited to what is seen, but continues into the realm of the unseen, stretching across time and eternity. It is in the revered Hindu scriptures present action is required but aligned with dharma, a moral order larger than oneself, demonstrating time stretches across vast cycles. Even Buddhist teachings include karma, cause and effect across time. Across these traditions, the message is consistent. The present matters. But it matters because it is connected to both the past and the future. No enduring spiritual framework teaches historical amnesia or to disregard future aspirations. The isolated now, detached from memory and responsibility, is a modern distortion. But this structure of time, being connected to the past, present, and future, is not confined to spiritual traditions. Even modern constitutional systems are built upon continuity. Courts interpret law through what came before, decisions layered upon earlier reasoning with the future in mind. Early legislators amended frameworks within awareness that those amendments would bind generations yet unborn. Early democracies conducted peaceful transfers of power not because the present moment demands it emotionally, but because continuity requires it structurally. Secular governance, at its best, recognizes what ancient traditions understood intuitively. The present must answer to what came before and remain accountable to what comes next. That same is true in science. Knowledge does not begin from zero. Every peer-reviewed study rests on accumulated discovery. Replication exists to guard integrity across time. Citation preserves intellectual lineage. Innovation itself depends on inherited understanding. Science, at its best, is structured humility across generations. Break continuity and progress stalls. Ignore prior learning and error multiplies. Whether in faith, governance, or research, the pattern holds. Time horizons must be integrated. And now a word for our sponsors.
This episode of The Third Horizon is brought to you by CoinToss Coffee, a brand built on passion, family, and the bold leap into possibility. Every blend is handcrafted from Kevin's own recipes, including their best-selling Cowboy Roast, bold, smooth, and unforgettable. And right now, listeners of The Third Horizon can enjoy 10% off their order at cointosscoffee.com using promo code Horizon10. That is cointosscoffee.com. CoinToss Coffee. Take a chance on a better cup.
These traditions guard memory. Political leaders often guard continuity. Consider Abraham Lincoln. In the middle of the Civil War, he spoke of a new birth of freedom. He anchored the present crisis in founding memory and projecting a redefined future. That was not escapism. It was generational framing. Consider Winston Churchill. We shall never surrender. Those words were not about the comfort of the moment. They were about endurance, about preserving a civilization beyond immediate fear. And consider John F. Kennedy. We choose to go to the moon. That sentence expanded the time horizon of a nation. Some say of a world. It required funding across administrations, scientific continuity, and a workforce that would labor for years before success was visible. Political wisdom, at its best, does not isolate the here and now. It expands it. Then there are those who push the human horizon even further. Organizations like NASA did not land on the moon through impulse. The Apollo program required layered planning, inherited engineering knowledge, and sustained commitment. Engineers like Wernher von Braun understood that spaceflight is continuity applied. But the vision of leaving Earth began long before rockets ever reached orbit. One of the founding thinkers of astronautics, Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, once wrote, Earth is the cradle of humanity, but one cannot remain in the cradle forever. That ideal captured something profound. Exploration is not simply curiosity. It is the natural expansion of a civilization that continues to grow. Astronomer Carl Sagan later expressed a similar sense of wonder when he said, "Somewhere, something incredible is waiting to be known." Sagan also reminded us that when we look at Earth from space, we see what he called a pale blue dot, a small world that carries the entire story of humanity. And when Neil Armstrong stepped onto the lunar surface, the world saw a moment. But that moment rested on a decade of preparation and centuries of scientific inheritance. One small step supported by enormous continuity. And today, new efforts are emerging that attempt to think about governance and civilization beyond Earth itself. One such effort is the space nation of Asgardia, an experiment in building a digital framework for human society that might one day extend beyond our planet. Whether such efforts ultimately succeed remains to be seen, but they represent something important: the willingness to think beyond the immediate moment. Now we arrive at the tension of our moment. Living in the present can mean release regret, reduce anxiety, act clearly. But it can also mean ignore patterns, avoid long-term consequences, prioritize comfort over continuity. If we remove the past from the present, we lose wisdom. If we remove the future from the present, we lose responsibility. And if we lose both, we lose direction. More than a century ago, observing a fractured world, a poet wrote, "Things fall apart, the center cannot hold." He was describing instability, systems losing coherence under pressure. But perhaps the deeper question is this: what allows a center to hold in the first place? A civilization does not hold together merely through force or momentum. It holds through continuity, through shared memory, through responsibility carried forward, through a future worth positioning to. The present is powerful, but it is not self-sufficient. And I repeat, it is not self-sufficient. And now another word for our sponsors.
This episode of The Third Horizon is also brought to you by FCA, Fine Consulting Agency. If you need high-level policy analysis, structured research, or strategic writing tailored for government, space governance, or nonprofit sectors, FCA delivers clarity, organization, and deep insight. Learn more at fcaonline.info, that is fcaonline.info.
So instead of choosing sides, past versus present, present versus future, let us integrate. The past is represented by memory. It teaches, it warns, and it is grounded in identity. The present is represented by responsibility. This is where decisions are made and discipline thrives. And the future is represented by stewardship, a moment for those not yet born who receive an inheritance of our choices in the present. The here and now is not a destination. It is a bridge. When we are standing on that edge of the moment, we are standing between what was and what will be. Remove either side and the structure weakens. If humanity intends to expand into the next great frontier, if we aim to build sustainable systems beyond Earth, our time horizon must expand accordingly. Short-term thinking cannot sustain long-term exploration. Civilizations that forget their past repeat it. Civilizations that ignore their future consume it. Wisdom keepers, whether prophets, philosophers, political leaders, scientists, educators, or explorers, did and do not teach amputation of time. They teach awareness within time, memory, responsibility, stewardship, all integrated. That moment is sacred, not because it stands alone, but because it carries what came before and shapes what comes next. We are not isolated occurrences drifting through history. We are links in a chain. So, live cautiously, be present, but act with clarity, and do not sever yourself from memory. Do not abandon responsibility. The illusion is not the present moment in the here and now. The illusion is believing it is enough by itself. And civilizations that believe in that premise do not endure. They drift. And if that drift becomes large enough, they collapse. Memory anchors us. Responsibility disciplines us. And stewardship directs us. That is how a center holds. And that is the third horizon. So in closing, this podcast is not about outrage. It is not about taking sides. It is about memory, responsibility, and stewardship. Inform wisdom across spiritual, political, and cosmic contexts. But wisdom alone does not guarantee cohesion. Civilizations endure not only because they remember, but because something holds them together under strain. Next week, we turn to that question. What holds humanity together when systems fracture and pressures rise? Because understanding time is one step, but understanding cohesion is another. If you are someone who senses the world is shifting, if you feel tension between what is and what could be, if you believe humanity is meant for something more, then welcome. This is the Third Horizon. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. More conversations are coming, deeper, wider, and firmly focused on the future. And I hope next week's podcast will have a guest speaker. We'll see. If you like today's podcast, hit the like button. Let us know in the comments. And subscribe to our Spotify, YouTube, and Facebook channel, or whatever platform you are watching from. Do not forget to share this podcast with your friends and family. Until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon and beyond.